Great. Okay. So I guess if we could start the introductions from all of you on the panel, then we'll start with Musa. How about you go ahead and begin explaining kind of what your background is, where you're from, what your how your journey started.
Okay, so my name is Musa, and I go to the University of Exeter. I study neuroscience. And a bit about my background. So I live in London, go to uni in Exeter, and I'm a STEM student. So kind of came across the whole spring week and like summer internships quite late. It wasn't something I heard about when I was in first year. But luckily, I'm on a 4-year course, so I was still eligible in year 2. So somehow a couple of applications, got involved with like SEO London and started going to like stuff into finance. Learned about like struggled for like the first few months because I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. But now I've very much kind of what's it called? I focus my roles more on like the front office role. So between equity research, sales and trading for global markets, and maybe I dabble in like fintech and tech or sales. So that's where I am now. And like, yeah, coming towards, I'm doing an internship this year in an investment bank. Probably next year I'm interning in like a financial services fintech space as well. So that's what I'm up to.
So quite a fintechy background there, and you're doing internships. That's great. So let's move on to Alfie next then.
Hi everyone, my name is Alfie. I go to the University of Exeter where I study economics and finance, so similar to Musa. And my background is really, I joined in first, so I'm currently second year, and I joined Exeter, I joined a society in my first year, so similar to Clio, but kind of the Exeter equivalents. And through that society, I was able to learn so much very quickly in my first year about finance, about the spring weeks as well. And I received a lot of help from the society, and I ended up getting a spring internship at Citibank, where I do corporate finance. And during that spring internship, kind of before preparing, I just made sure I was very up to date with current news, and then also understanding certain kind of corporate finance functions. So I kind of knew my division going into it. So I was really just trying to doing as much research as possible using the Citi websites, which was full of information and full of current events and useful things to know about. That really helped me in the interview. And then once I passed the interview, it was 2 rounds going into the spring week. And then during the actual spring week, it was obviously virtual because we were in lockdown back then. And during the spring week, it was really all about networking with other people, reaching out to all the professionals who presented to us virtually via LinkedIn, and having a chat with all of them, asking them for any advice they have on how to progress in this field. And I found all their advice that I gained during the spring week really helped me convert it to a summer internship. And the way Citi did the conversion process from the spring to the summer was an assessment center, which they fast tracked you to an assessment center, which followed about 3 weeks after the spring week. And during that assessment center, the key thing was making sure you were a team player. And from there, I have converted that to a summer. So, and since then, I've just been kind of continuing to develop my interest in kind of corporate finance, banking, and all of that. So feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks for that. That was really insightful. Okay, then I guess we'll move on to Alex next.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. I'm Alex, I'm second year econ at LSE. So before the whole spring thing, I really was sort of like blind to the whole process, hadn't heard of it at all before uni. came in and sort of joined a couple finance societies at uni, started applying to them relatively early in first year. I did Springs at Lazard and Goldman, and I'm going back to sort of Goldman this year for summer. But in terms of sort of like the prep beforehand, I think just echo a lot of what was said before. A lot of the time is mostly just sort of reading up on the news, reading up on the bank, past deals, as well as sort of just, current sort of news developments and things. Our Springs were sort of all online. So it was during the spring, it was mostly just trying to chat to as many people as you can, try and just, I guess, stand out on that online sense as much as possible. And I'm happy to sort of go into sort of the conversion process for Lazard, Goldman at all, or anything like that, if anyone has any sort of questions. But, the Springs were sort of a stressful time, but you end up sort of learning loads about each of the banks and sort of all the workflows and things like that in quite a short amount of time, and speak to some really, really interesting people. So yeah, more than happy to sort of go into anything about any of them later on at all. In terms of sort of after the Springs doing now, it's mostly just sort of, again, keeping up with the news, keep chatting to people, things like that. But yeah, if there's any question over, happy to go into it. Cheers.
Thanks for that, Alex. Everyone, just to be clear, do send your messages in the chat and we can go through them afterwards, or maybe write them down. And once we've kind of spoken about the whole general process more holistically with everyone, then you can go ahead and ask your questions directly. Okay, so I guess we can move on to Jordan next.
Happening, everyone. Hope everyone's well. My name is Jordan. I go Kent and I study econ. So the plan was in first year to get as many internships as possible within different divisions within an investment bank to understand where I could be best positioned. And because I go Kent, it's not the greatest of universities, but nonetheless, it kind of gave me a head start in terms of networking, speaking to individuals who had the outcomes I wanted. And I was fortunate enough to get internships at JP Morgan, Goldman, Rothschild, and PIMCO. And I did it across global markets, investment banking, asset management, and wealth management. Now, the only ones that I could convert was the Goldman one, which was the global markets one. But unfortunately, I didn't convert that. But nonetheless, I've got an internship lined up with them this summer in private wealth management. So I feel like you guys can really learn from me as to why I failed and ensure that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So I'm just happy to be here and answer any questions.
Thanks, Jordan. I guess Rohan will just go over to you then.
Perfect. Yeah. Nice to meet everyone. I'm currently in the science owner of the library, so I'm that guy. Yeah, I study LSE. I study mathematics and economics. I did Springs at City and RBC. Obviously, I guess you guys can hear me all fine, hopefully. Last year, I'm trying to convert into the New York office because I have a dual citizenship. And I guess I'm actually friends with one of Nina's friends who is doing the same, or possibly, I don't know. I don't want to comment on other people's personal situations. Yeah, I guess also one thing is that I'm quite focused on global markets, as is Alex. So there are certainly some firms, family offices, hedge funds in the States that make you sign confidentiality agreements. So I'm not really sure how much detail I can go in there, but yeah, I'm happy to talk about anything EM credit. That's kind of what I'm interested in anything market neutral, which is also synonymous to long short equity. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So I guess second to last person, Nina, if you are here, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a second year student at LSE. I do economic history and geography. My journey into investment banking happened when I was like in year 12 at school. I got exposed to a few internships, and then I did a few spring weeks last year. I did them at Bank of America, JP Morgan, and then a few other boutiques. For this summer, I managed to convert one of my offers, but I declined it and I've accepted Citi for investment banking. And I look forward to hearing all your questions.
Thanks for that. So a very diverse background. Okay, and Charlotte, please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, so my name's Charlotte and I'm a second year economics student at LSE. I did my Springs last year at Rothschild, Morgan Stanley, Evercore, and Lazard. So experience at both like boutiques and then also bulge brackets as well. So if you have any questions on that, just feel free to ask. Oh, and for summer, I converted Morgan Stanley, so I'll be going back there this year for investment banking.
And it's to my understanding you also got 3 boutique banks, correct?
Yeah, yes. So last year I Rothschild, Evercore, and Lazard.
Okay, so in that case, I guess we'll go around the panel now and just kind of I'll ask you, what did you do to prepare for your spring weeks, and how did you kind of get a better understanding of what you will know to do, what you were going to say, who you'd speak to? How did you mentally prepare and maybe write down any ideas? You know, just go ahead and talk about your general preparation for the spring weeks if you can. We'll go around in the same order. So Musa again.
Okay, so I think my longest spring week had to, I'll start with my longest one, or my most difficult one, more like. So I was a spring at Bloomberg, and that was 2 weeks long, but it was like shorter days across 2 weeks. So, but it was virtual, so it wasn't too bad. So it was like 1 or 2 hours every day, an hour or 1 or 2 hours every day for like 2 weeks. So to prepare beforehand, which is what you asked, was I think just researching the company generally is a really good idea. Trying to have an understanding of like what they actually did. So even with the converting process, I can tell you that I don't think I got a good idea of what the actual role involved until I was midway through like trying to convert the offer, because there were quite a few interviews that happened afterwards towards the next couple of months. I was also a spring intern at like 2 asset managers, but similar vibe. Those were a bit more difficult because the spring intern class was quite big, and I'd say it was a bit more difficult to be noticed, especially when I wasn't really very well informed about what asset management was. So a lot of it, I think, would be to set yourself apart would be research a lot about what the role actually entails, how you think you can also fit into that role exactly. Because, for example, if you're interning at like an investment bank or an asset manager, likelihood is you should have like good quantitative skills, but like try and like find out things specifically about the company at which you fit into the role quite well. So with me and Bloomberg has Bloomberg Philanthropy, which is like huge. So if you're someone who like volunteers at charities, goes to events and fundraisers and things like that, that's something that the company is like really good at. Or with like climate change, if you're someone who's passionate about climate change. So that's one example. But yeah.
Great. So generally you're saying research the role and see the best way to fit and kind of get the best way you can match the job.
Yeah, and I think also like everybody can like realistically, if you have the spring week offer, everyone can do the work. I think it's also the same thing with like summer internships generally, but like it's more about, in my experience as well with summer applications as well, because I applied to I had a summer, my last summer was, this summer was a summer application summer. So it's more about just trying to be a good fit for the role. And also don't get demotivated if you don't convert it, because with certain firms that I've interned in or gone to like insight events and things like that, like if you didn't necessarily gel with the people, likelihood is it's not really for you. But yeah.
Yeah, great. That's a good point. I guess culture is quite important in how you mix with the people. Okay, then thanks for that, Musa. So how about you, Al?
Yeah, a lot of similarities to Musa, really. Making sure you know the company very well is very important. Where I was at City, they actually have a specific web page for the division I was going into. So I really used that a lot and kind of constantly checked to see the latest insights they posted and listened to podcasts. And then I suppose, I mean, once you've got the spring week offer, a lot of the work is already done because you would have done a lot of research. So I think between, even in just the week before, just make sure they'll send you probably a program of the spring week. So make sure you really prepare a few questions to ask guest speakers during the spring week. I think is a good thing. And also just very mundane things like making sure your background looks professional, making sure if it's a virtual one or if you're in person, make sure you're wearing kind of clothes that make make sure your clothes are kind of well ironed, shoes are polished, etc. Just making sure the small things, because obviously that all really matters. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to add to what Musa said.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so focus on the little things then. Okay, Rohan, I know you wanted to chip in there.
Perfect. Yeah, so I was actually in the same spring class as Alfie, and different division in the global markets. It's called Markets and Security Services at City, but essentially the same thing. So I actually didn't chose not to convert my or even interview at City or RBC. I knew I wanted to do something else. Let's just say that. But it's an arrogant decision. In hindsight, it is arrogant. The markets will always humble you. That's what I love about it. The deal flow in M&A is quite a lengthy process in terms of timelines. If you look up, say, Bluecrest, they take views that are within a week timeframe. They are also a family office, so they don't have a formal hiring process. But I think commercial awareness, literally you could be the cleverest person at LSE, and unfortunately you may not get internships because you don't know how to explain a certain topic. I am certainly not the cleverest person at LSE, far from it. I think also being personable, being nice. Don't try and have an ego. Keep yourself to, or that's more of a personal thing. Keep yourself to yourself. Yeah, I think have a general curiosity to learn. Don't worry if you don't get spring. I know this is a convert your spring event. So probably not the best advice there, but if you don't convert, it's really not that important. I certainly didn't, but I can convert into another office. Sorry, I'm just getting something on Bloomberg. Yeah, by all means. Get Bloomberg. Also, yeah, someone's unmuted. That's not something on Bloomberg. Yeah, if your university has access to Bloomberg, use it. Use it too much, or not too much. I use it a fair amount. You can use Bloomberg anywhere, so you don't have to walk up to the fourth floor on the library. You can literally use it at home. I run my own book, focusing on, I mean, you can see it on my profile. That's really impressed people. I also produce my own research because I like to. Yeah, mildly nerdy, but again, definitely prioritize your friends over this stuff. Go out, enjoy your time at university. It's going to be the best 3 years, 4 years of your life, or 5 years, or 6, however many, if you're doing medical courses. Yeah, definitely enjoy it. Don't stress yourself out too much. It's only a week. Yeah.
Thanks, Rohan. So you're saying essentially be personable, be likable, and be humble to yourself. That's very good.
Yeah, I guess also, like, just as a final adage, bankers need to have a reason to hire you, especially in the hedge fund industry. There's this thing called a pod structure. The cost of you goes to the senior PM. So if you give them any reason not to hire you, they won't hire you, because for obvious reasons.
Cool. So no ammunition against yourself either. Thank you. So Nina, I know you want to go next. So how about you go ahead?
Hi, so I just wanted to mention, I think first of all, you should really congratulate yourselves that you've got spring offers. And even if you don't have a spring offer, something's always around the corner. And also there's loads of programs online that can help strengthen your CV and make you a better candidate. I think what I did before my spring weeks that really helped me was basically research the company. I don't have a strong financial background, and someone mentioned that they've written a book. But what you've got to remember is that you've been chosen for a reason, and there's something about you that they like already. So work with your strengths. Someone else said that you've got to be personable. Of course, you've got to be personable. That's how you probably got through the interview. But continue that strength and be kind and caring, and don't be so like obnoxious about the fact that you've got a financial internship. I think alongside of that is network with as many people as you can. The first part of networking is your interview. When you got your interview, you met someone that works at the firm, and you can use that to your strength. You can reach out to them before your internship. You can say to them, I'd love to learn about the firm. Could you tell me more about it so I'm prepared for when I come in? In that sense, the interview can be seen as a networking opportunity. When you get to your internship, try to keep those connections strong and meet new people and work along the lines of that. Don't worry if your financial knowledge isn't up to scratch. Mine definitely wasn't, and I was doing investment banking, and you hear that people have the greatest knowledge. I'm telling you, the people around you definitely do not have the greatest knowledge. It's a facade. Just work on yourself. Like you're there to learn, it's a marketing fair. They're going to tell you all about their company. Be excited, be curious, be engaged, and that will definitely get you through your internship.
Thank you, Nina. That was really good. So essentially you're saying learn, be really interested, essentially just show you're interested and passionate, because they will like that. Okay. Alex, don't think we've heard from you yet. So how about we go ahead with you?
Yeah, no, I think Nina sort of put it really well with sort of just showing your interests and, you know, having sort of smile on your face when you're sort of learning about all these sort of things. I think I'll just reiterate something I think someone said before about podcasts. A lot of banks run their own podcasts, get an idea of sort of the house views on certain, you know, market issues. I mean, you guys will all be doing sort of your springs at a time of sort of like insane market volatility. So there's always, you know, sort of loads of research and views coming out at the moment and sort of loads of developments. Just keep up to date with sort of what's going on, how different markets are moving, how markets move together, things like that. If your thing is markets, I'll probably just stick with that mostly. But for the market side, I think, yeah, just make sure you keep up to date with the news, read up on the firm, yeah, and just sort of think about, you know, what's going on. And if you get opportunities to try and chat to some people at the firm, but I'll definitely say sort of focus more on sort of the news side of it and just show your interest through, you know, your keenness to keep up with what's going on.
Cool, thanks, Alex. So Charlotte, Jordan, do you guys have anything to add for preparation before the spring weeks?
Yeah, what I'd say is just about being intentional when building relationships, right? I feel like when you're in the spring week, understand who the decision makers are within the firm. One mistake I made was thinking that talking to the big boys, the seniors, would get me converted, not knowing that analysts hold the most weight in determining who gets converted. So right now, start networking early with different individuals. And I would say focus more on the quality rather than the quantity of relationships you're building, right? It's like, if I had a girlfriend, she'd cherish more the quality time we spend together rather than how much time we are together, if that makes sense. So focus on that. And I'd say also right now, start thinking of ways you can kind of like pre-predict the value you can add on a spring internship, right? So people remember you when you help them. So if you're network with an analyst who's on the equities desk covering Asian markets, there's no harm in sending him something in the Financial Times that could aid him or assist him or help him. It just goes a long way, right? So be of value and focus more on the quality of relationships rather than the quantity of relationships is my advice.
Well, that was very, very a different kind of perspective on things. I don't think a lot of people really focus on the personal relationships of things, especially in terms of the weight that each one can add and the value in the recruitment process. So thanks for that, Jordan. Okay, Charlotte, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's been like a lot of really good advice before. But I think something that I did that really helped was speaking to people who had done the spring before, and sort of seeing how they found it, how they sort of stood out on the spring. The structure, just getting an idea of like the structure of how the week will go, can be like incredibly helpful and can help you tailor your approach because different banks will do things differently. I think also, yeah, like Alex said, sort of keeping up to date with like what's going on in markets, and even if you want to go into investment banking, just being aware of like what sort of trends are sort of happening in M&A. So if there's a presentation and there's like an opportunity for Q&A at the end, you can sort of have a bit more of an informed question that's kind of related to what's going on and is a bit more relevant, rather than something that's just, I don't know, a bit random. And yeah, I think also speaking to people at the firm a bit before can help. It's not essential because there'll be opportunities to, like when you're on the spring as well. But yeah, I mean, I'd say those are the things that I'd say are most important. I think for investment banking as well, it is worth sort of like learning a bit of technicals, especially if the conversion interview is quite soon afterwards. So for MS, I did my last year, the spring was from the 12th to the 16th of April. And then my conversion interview was on the 24th. So like it doesn't give you a lot of time to sort of prepare. So just sort of like making sure that you're ready when you go into the spring, sort of hit the ground running. And yeah, of course, like throughout the whole thing, like although the assessment might be after the spring, do sort of like have a smile on your face and just be personable, and with everyone you speak to, just try and like give a good impression, because especially on Zoom, like they're not going to be looking at you all the time, but the times that they are sort of looking at you, that's sort of when you sort of make an impression. So yeah, so just make sure that you come across well. But yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I guess now we'll move on to kind of what you did during the spring week, because we just focused on preparation. So let's go on to what you did, and let's kind of implement some post stuff as well, because why not? So I guess we'll go around in a circle again. Musa?
So during the spring week, I think definitely with the ones I went to, some people had their camera off throughout the whole thing. So I don't think they would have been as successful as the people that did have their cameras on. So try to look engaged, dress up professionally, but these are all like things that are very clear. I would, from my experience, and like even with like summer assessment centers and things like that, and I know Jeffries as a bank is like, it's kind of like this as well for anybody that's doing it. They kind of value more of a chill approach but then again, every different firm looks for a different thing. And Charlotte's point was really good with, I think she said, network with the past spring interns, but like different people are looking for different things. So try and not cut off people from like speaking, or like just trying to be respectful, I think, is really good, even in assessment centers. If there are certain people that are dominating like the discussion and the argument, maybe use the Zoom like raise hand feature. I find that that's an easy way of like signaling and just being patient as well. That's something that did help. During the internship as well, keep notes, I think. Anything you learn, any key stats, write them down, because you can use them for the conversion if they call you back for the assessment center. Or you can actually just wait for the summer cycle and also use that information, because some banks don't offer like direct conversion. So you have to apply anyways afterwards. What else did I do during and after? Something I normally do is after I meet somebody, I normally connect with them on LinkedIn, send them a quick message and say, I try to remember something. If they said something that was really useful I had, or something that I had a question about, I always just wrote it down, wrote their name down, what did they say, what did I learn? Then you kind of say that, because it allows them to know that you were being engaged throughout the whole process. And Jordan's point was really important, because I also feel like a lot of people think that the analysts and the associates and the MDs that you speak to are the one that like help you convert. They're really not. Like from my experience, it's actually just the HR. So a lot of people kind of like ignore HR's calls or emails, or they reply quite like slowly. So just try and make sure that you reply people's emails when they send it to you. Little things like thank you. If you missed the call them back, or send a voice note. So just try to be like punctual generally. I think that generally does help. But yeah, apart from that, and with the notes you take, they'll help you with the interview process. And I think most things about Springs is just, they want you to be a sponge. So kind of just showcase what you've learned, and like how that kind of like goes in hand with like your future plans. And I think from there you can like convert to it. But yeah, that's my background.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks, Musa. Yeah, great. Also, because we're running low on time, I think we'll do half of you do during the spring week and a few of you do after, just to spread it out, and then we can do some Q&As personalized. Okay, so let's go with Alfie.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I could give during spring week is actually just really enjoy it. It's such a unique experience and a unique opportunity to actually get an insight into a firm, and being around in that environment with a lot of other like-minded people. It's a really, really enjoyable experience. You'll be given a lot of interesting information. So as Musa said, take notes, and try and make a lot of friends as well during the process. And yeah, really just be engaged with all activities. You don't have to ask questions every presentation or every session for the sake of asking questions. But if you really want to know something, then do ask, because no question is a stupid question. So yeah, really just enjoy it and engage with the process, because it is very good fun, as well as being a very good opportunity.
Thanks, Alfie. Rohan, I know you want to say something after that.
Yeah, I guess so during the week, definitely reach out to people, because at the end of the day, it's a people-run business. I think RBC is a great place to learn, because they don't offer conversion during the week. So City offer conversion on the 12th or on the 16th. So the program last year was the 12th to 16th. And your conversion interview is, you have 2 conversion interviews, both on the 16th, and for whatever reason I was in hospital at the time, so yeah, I kind of delayed that, but yeah, definitely don't use any don't make excuses, don't lie, definitely don't fake anything, be authentic, so genuine interest. I hope that my genuine interest kind of comes across, not in a geeky way. That is the exact opposite of what I want to be. I let the Cambridge and IIT grads and Oxford and Imperial grads do all of the high frequency trading. Obviously, I'm not sectioning myself out from that. I don't think LSE is that bad. I think know what you want, go for it. Don't kind of waver. Even if you don't get summer, you can get full time. Even if you don't get full time, I don't know, you can do a master's.
Thanks, Rohan. Great. So let's move on to Alex then. Would you have any advice for during the spring week, and maybe even preparation for the conversion interviews?
Definitely. I think Musa mentioned something like this as well, but I think one of the things that can really help an insane amount is just saying thank you to sort of everyone you speak to, anyone you rotate with on the desks. Emails just to say what you've learned, things you've enjoyed, just like, actually sort of thanking people for their time can really go a long way. And it shows you sort of, you sort of care about what you're actually getting involved in as well. I think that was one of the big things for me for the spring, was just making sure that, you relayed, things that you've learned, as well as just sort of, thanking people for their time, I think is a massive help. Make sure you ask questions. Don't feel like, you need to have, insanely elaborate questions all the time. Questions in general just do very much show that you are sort of thinking about what is being said, you're taking in what's going on, and you have some sort of genuine curiosity to try and find out more. I think that questions like that really, really go a long way. But I think sort of the main things for on the spring, just sort of add on and reiterate, is basically just, make sure, you're asking questions. Don't over ask questions, but if you have genuine questions, do ask them, and definitely do sort of, talk, try and reach out to people again, just even for a thank you or follow up and things like that. I think go a long way. In terms of conversion interviews, I'll stick with sort of Goldman. They did sort of 3 conversion interviews at the end of the 2 weeks. In terms of preparing for them at a spring level, I mean, it's sort of firm dependent, right? But you shouldn't be asked on anything sort of too overly technical. I know a lot of the times on the spring, they tend to want to know sort of what you've learned, what you've enjoyed about the spring. So definitely sort of take notes as you go through your time there. Try and, make sure you have, up-to-date notes on everything you're doing, everything you've heard and learned. Because a lot of the time in the interviews, they can ask you about things you've enjoyed and things you've done. But yeah, in terms of prep for that, I think just, know what you've done over the past few days, know things that you've enjoyed, know things that you've learned, and be happy to talk about them. And apart from that, they tend to be pretty normal sort of like behavioral interviews as well. So your normal prep and things like that is sort of perfect.
So how technical would you say they go then?
I mean, I can't talk for sort of too many firms. I can only say for mine, There was basically nothing technical for me. The only thing that was for me, it was basically just, again, interest in the markets, news you found interesting. Maybe someone who's done one of the IB internships, because maybe shed a bit more light into sort of maybe some of the harder questions. But for me, it was tend to basically just be sort of your interest and sort of your views and opinions on things that are going on in the news.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Nina, I guess we'll hear from you now, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, I did investment banking spring weeks, and for Bank of America, the conversion was quite challenging. There was very much a technical interview. So for that, I definitely recommend that your technicals, so like your basic valuation methods, and then basically anything that you can find online. I'm not going to list that all out. And then for the other ones in the boutiques, it was a lot easier. It's more about like, well, in my experience, it's more about like yourself, what you learn, like behavioral questions, things like that. I think just general advice for the spring. Obviously network with people, connect with them on LinkedIn, say thank you. One of the things that really stood out from one of my spring weeks was there was this one guy that after each talk would unmute themselves and say thank you. And by the end of it, everyone like knew who he was, knew his name, because he did something so like polite but so monumental. But be polite. It doesn't have to be monumental, but it's just a good example of like taking the initiative and doing something good. And yeah, like congratulate yourselves that you got in. That's the key thing. Like you've done great. Any name on your CV is amazing. You're getting exposed to the industry, whether it's investment banking or markets or whatever in between. You're going to be learning a lot. So yeah.
Very inspirational words. I do actually have a question for that. So you did mention that what's going to, actually no, we'll do questions at the end. Sorry about that. Jordan, let's hop over to you, and then we'll hop over to Charlotte, and then we will open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, so with myself, my most active spring was at Goldman. And I'd say you want to understand the components of the internship, right? So we had the networking aspects, the pitching aspect, and then the interviews at the end. And the problem for me was that I misplaced my energy. So I focused more on the networking and the pitching rather than the interviews. So if I was to go back there again, I'd probably put more energy and more time into preparing for the interviews. And I'd say they look out for understanding the business line. Like, make sure you understand the business line and you can show your curiosity. And for me, I didn't really exemplify that and show that. And then obviously after the internship, cool, I had lots of experiences in different divisions. I told myself that I'm best suited to operate in a sales orientated role, whether it's in sales and markets or private wealth management. Then from that rejection, it kind of sparked a difference in me. I kind of just, networked religiously, tried to take my time, understand the components of what I wanted to go into, deep dive, spoke to different individuals at different banks, building that holistic network, right, from different places. Then I was fortunate enough to get an internship at Goldman. But if I was to give more advice as well, I'd say now that things are in person, you want to show presence and image, right? Like vital things, like make sure your internal brand is good. Like if you're leaving the office, what are they saying about Jordan? What are they saying about me? Are they saying good things or bad things? So yeah, make sure your energy is on point. That's what I'd say.
Thanks, Jordan. Charlotte?
Yeah, so just to sort of build on what people have been saying, I think, yeah, so showing your appreciation for the speakers that have come to like talk can go a long way. And I think this also really depends on the spring that you do. I found that for like boutiques like Lazard, Rothschild, Evercore, the springs are a lot smaller, and HR really seem to value that sort of like the sort of more personable side. Whereas for Morgan Stanley, because the spring class was so big, like of course you should still send like thank you messages afterwards and show your appreciation, but they didn't assess you as much on the spring. So I'd say tailor your approach based on I guess like the sort of the assessment nature of it. And then also I guess when you're on the spring, when they open up the floor for questions, I mean, this goes without saying, but like prepare your question during the thing, pay attention during like the presentation, anything that comes up, just sort of like try and sort of turn it into a question, but like don't just ask questions for the sake of it. Like ask good questions that have shown that you actually do have an interest and like that you've actually been thinking about the topic. So I think those are just some things that I thought would be quite useful, but also like a lot of good stuff has been said before, so do all of that too. Yeah.
What about conversion interviews? How did they go?
Yeah, so I did the conversion interviews for MS and LASID. Both of them are quite different. So for MS, it was one case study and 2 behavioral interviews. The case study, they give you like 20 minutes to prepare and then 20 minutes to do the, like actually present it to a banker. And then they ask you questions about it afterwards. The sort of nature of it was that like, it was quite technical. It was like a little bit technical. It wasn't too bad. But like, they sort of give you sort of a company with some sort of strategic alternatives, and you have to sort of talk about those. And then the behavioral interviews were just like competencies and also like commercial awareness and like the classic like YMS. And I'm sure like if you've got the spring, you've sort of prepared those questions already, but just making sure that you can tie stuff that you've also learned on the spring into those questions as well. Just so like it shows that you've been paying attention and you've actually gotten something from the week and that you want to continue to like work at the bank. And then for LASID, it was just 2 behavioral interviews. That was a bit more different. It was a bit different, but because they assess you more on the actual week itself. So you also have like a presentation and stuff on there. But yeah.
Great, thanks. So I guess now anyone, if you want to ask a question, please put up your hand and you can go ahead and ask the question. Yeah, Sachin, go ahead.
Yeah, so hello everyone, it's nice to hear your perspective and thank you for sharing some tips. Actually, I'm not in UK right now and I wanted to apply for the graduate programs and the summer programs in UK. So I'm currently in France right now. So I just wanted to know, like, is this a feasible decision or like what, if you can? Thank you.
I guess I could consider myself to be vaguely good at this. So I have a dual nationality as well. So I'm American and English. For example, there's a boutique technology firm called Catalyst Partners that has much larger offices in San Francisco. I probably should shut up because I'm in the silent zone, but yeah, so I think definitely it's very helpful starting to work where you want to work. Choose, make a decision. It's a personal one. I can't really advise on that. Yeah.
Just to build up on his point as well, as someone who also has dual nationality, you can also apply to I think people are open, like with summer cycles, people are open to applying. You have people coming in from like Italy, different parts of Europe and Africa that I've met in like my assessment centers. And like, I know quite a few people that have actually gotten offers. So it depends on the firm in question. So just do some networking with HR and find out, but like some firms do sponsor lots of people. So like Barclays, Jefferies, HSBC, and lots of the big banks offer international students like summer internships. So yeah.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Ariane, I believe you're next.
Yep. Firstly, thanks a lot, guys, for organizing this and giving us these tips. I've received 2 Spring Week offers from Morgan Stanley in Frankfurt and Deutsche Bank in Frankfurt. And I had questions regarding the case study which Charlotte mentioned at Morgan Stanley. So you mentioned that they normally ask you for some strategic decisions. Do they also ask you like questions on all the valuation methodologies, or do they just keep it like specific to DCF and relative? Because I plan to apply for equity research, and I know that for investment banking, it could kind of vary for about LBO questions and all of that. So I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So for me, the questions they asked, they were more based on the case study itself. They didn't really ask me anything about like specific valuation methods. Although if I'm sure if like that's something you alluded to in your answer, then they would ask you more about it. I'd say I don't know what the sort of how it works for equity research, and I don't know how it works for Frankfurt exactly. But for like IBD London, they just sort of ask you a bit more about like why you use certain multiples, why you did things, like just to talk about your thought process a bit more. But again, this is really dependent on the interviewer. It could really go either way. But I'd say like even for like, I think for all divisions in MS, they did say that you will get one sort of more case study based interview and then two like more like behavioral interviews. So if you want to go into equity research, it will probably follow a similar sort of structure, but again, the nature of the case study will be different. Yeah.
So I've done some equity research interviews, and like there's going to be a stock pitch involved. So prepare a stock to long and prepare a stock to short. And I think suggestions that work, try and be very like creative with the public stock you pay. So don't pick like, well, I'd suggest not to pick like Apple or Tesla. Actually pick stocks that are like more like niche and interesting, and like chips. So look for game chips or something. That's something that works for me. So with the second thing is your macro trends. Also, like you have to highlight macro trends with like your equities. So for example, if you're talking about semiconductors or like chip making, you can talk about like the geopolitical risks of like how Europe wants to like stop using like international or like Asian semiconductors, and they want to like use more like homemade things like that. So look into trends like inflation, things about like importing, exporting, and just try and also highlight that into answers. And like the last question is just value. There's always valuation questions, but I muted to even just say that like with spring technicals, as someone that's done like, I'm not very good with technicals generally, but I have gotten some offers despite, if you don't know something, just say you don't know. And like say, but like ask follow-up questions and ask them to explain it. So I think that's advice I've gotten back as well. And also like, it's not the be all or end all. I think it's more about the motivation to work there rather than giving them a correct answer. But yeah.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. And by the way, guys, if you could all turn on your cameras, it would be good because we can have a bit more sense of community here in the Clio world.
Yeah, just before I hop off, I just wanted to say on Moose's point, I think the degree that you do makes that statement of whether you saying I don't know conditional. So for example, I study maths and economics. Me not knowing a basic statistical theorem such as the Monty Hall problem or Bayes theorem, they'll think you're an idiot. But obviously, that's definitely what Musa was not getting at. I think if someone asked me a question, there's definitely a question that would stop me like, what's the current Selic rate? I don't know. I know that it was raised about 10 basis points a couple weeks ago, but I don't know what it currently is. So yeah, that's why be humble. Yeah, I'm not a great motivational speaker, but yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, Charlotte and I were also in the same mentorship group, so I guess find a mentor. LSE has a very good scheme. I'm sure most unis do, especially if applying abroad, know the language fluently. I don't know how to, I'm quite lucky in the US. I don't need to learn how to say Monte Carlo simulations in German, for example, and or how to value a swaption or a swap or a CDS in German. You need to be fluent, like C2 or proficient or above. So I'm currently B2 in German. That's what it says on my CV. I also am B2, don't lie on your CV. I think that's employment fraud. They probably won't take legal action against you. You're not that important to them. Or you are important to them. I don't want to get tongue-tied, but it's highly unlikely that they'll take legal against you if you say you're B2 and you're B1, for example, or C1. Yeah. I'll shut up.
Thanks for the motivating words. Great. So Aradia, you seem to have a question, so how about you go ahead? And guys, please turn on your cameras. We encourage it, and just makes us feel together a bit more. There we go. Thanks, guys.
So thank you so much for giving your views today, everyone. And my question is very specific for like every other firm as well. So you all mentioned that it's good to ask as many questions as possible during the spring week. But can you all suggest what type of questions we should ask to stand out? Because usually I can't really think of questions on spot what to ask. And then I don't want to miss out on the opportunity of standing out as well by asking as many questions, by showing that inquisitive mindset as well. So what do you all recommend the type of questions we could ask over there?
Yeah, I don't mind taking this. I'd say, ask questions that show you're ambitious and you've got that forward thinking mindset, right? So let's say I'm interning in markets and I want to become, I don't know, one day I want to be an associate. I'd ask them, okay, cool. How have you transitioned from an analyst to an associate? Or how have you been a valuable team member? Or how do you look to do more than the norm, etc. They might be working on the equities desk, try and fit in commercial awareness, news into the questions that you're asking. You just want to be thoughtful with your questions. Don't overthink it, but just try and show intent behind your questions. Like you yourself, you're trying to get as much information from the spring as possible. So just be careful and thoughtful with your questions. So that's my advice.
Yeah, to very quickly follow up on that, I think with questions, firstly, don't worry too much if you don't have a question to ask at that particular presentation. There'll be so many opportunities to ask questions. And what you can do if you struggle to kind of think of one on the spot, is research the person who's given the presentation beforehand. I'm sure you'll get sent an itinerary, hopefully, and have a look at their LinkedIn, what their career has been, and you can ask them about a particular deal they worked on or a particular transaction they've been involved in, and that way you're showing that you've kind of done some research and taking a bit of initiative. So that's a great way of standing out.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Bilal, you're up next. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hi guys, really appreciate the talk so far. So I just wanted to ask, for those of you who did like Springs virtually last year, the assessment center, was that also like done virtually? And if it was, like how did you sort of make sure that you were seen in a room where like everybody sort of got the cameras on, and it's not like a proper situation where you're surrounded like with people where you can communicate the same way? So like doing it virtually in assessment center, like how did you sort of stand out and make sure you did like a good job with that?
For me, with the Zoom thing, is just having your cameras on, making eye contact, and looking engaged like throughout the process. I think that was one of the things. But the other issue with Zoom is just try and not also just draw like all the attention towards yourself as well, to allow others to speak. So if you ask a question and you see that there's lots of other questions being asked, make sure that everybody can get to ask a question. Then maybe when the hands are down, then raise your hand again. That kind of makes sense. I think that works.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Great. Then Simon, you can go next now.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. I just had a quick question about the sort of Lazard Spring Week. I think Charlotte mentioned that in the conversion interview, it's sort of 2 behavioral interviews as well as I think a presentation. And I think Charlotte also mentioned that they assess you more on the Spring Week itself. So I was wondering just sort of about the presentation and assessing you more on the Spring Week itself. Sort of, could you please expand on that, and sort of what exactly would the presentation be, and how would they assess you sort of during the week?
Yeah, so for Lazard, I assume it's the same this year. The spring week's only 3 days. And when I say that they sort of assess you throughout, they sort of see how engaged you are in the presentations, whether you're asking questions, if your hand's up in like the Zoom call or something, like the types of questions you ask, they seem to quite meaningful ones, I guess. I don't really know how to put it, but so sort of I guess just making sure your questions are quite like insightful and a bit more specific and like well thought out, rather than just one that could be asked to anyone. But as long as it's just quite genuine and it comes from a place of actual interest rather than just asking it for the sake of it, I think they'll see that and like really value that as well. With the presentation, that's on the spring week itself. So they give you the task like on day one, and you sort of work on it in like your free time, like between presentations and like in the evenings as well. I can't really tell you exactly what it is, but like honestly, like feel free to message me afterwards, and then I can just sort of like give you a bit more like specific advice on how to sort of prepare and like the whole group dynamic of it as well. And yeah, so that was just like on the spring itself. And then throughout the spring as well, you have a buddy for Lazard, and then they'll like, you just sort of speak to them, and they're sort of like also talking to HR as well, from what it seems. And then there's 2 behavioral interviews afterwards, then like not technical at all. Often it'll be 2 sort of senior like people at Lazard who sort of are, they're given a list of questions, but they'll just ask you what they want to ask you and get to know you really. But not everyone will get invited back to that one. So it really depends on like how you sort of come across in the spring. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Charlotte. Very well answered.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So Nina, can I direct a question to you, yourself and Rohan?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to ask, you mentioned that there was a difficult technical interview for Bank of America. Would you say the technical knowledge you needed for that was very specific to the things you learned on the spring week, or did it really have to be extra research as well?
I think, well, for me in Bank of America, for Bank of America, the technical interview was just more general. Like in the internship, they did go over case studies, but it wasn't so direct. In the interview, it was completely direct. They openly asked you, what are the valuation methods? What are different multiples? Which one is better for this reason? Which one is better for that reason? And I think in that sense, you actually have to be quite prepared, like very prepared. I would start, if you're doing an in spring internship at Bank of America, I would definitely start maybe a week earlier than the internship and just go over your technicals. I definitely did not do that, and it reflected, but you can definitely make it happen and you can definitely do well. Just make sure that you know your technicals. And I think in terms of the boutique, I did a few boutique spring weeks, and in their technical interviews, it was much more chilled. Like you didn't know the answer. I also have to preference that I'm a humanities student, so I do economic history and geography. So the technical questions that I had were comparatively harder because I haven't had a background in it. But if you're an economics student, I think the questions will be a bit easier. But usually they match the kind of questions that you've got with your degree. It was just Bank of America was an anomaly.
I guess if you wanted me to vaguely chip in, I had a chat with a family office and Bridgewater, I think I can say that. Yeah, they will ask you technical questions. For example, without Bridgewater, this is also in Ray Dalio's book, Chicken McNuggets, like the things that you get from McDonald's. He financed the forward, like you can look at chicken stock prices and you can buy forwards for that. So basically risk against price variations over time. He did that. So knowing that is obviously good when you're speaking to a representative of the firm. And also, for what it's worth, there's lots of wheat price inflation. So I like Weetabix in the morning. So I currently know that if Weetabix is on sale, I'm going to buy more Weetabix because of economic theory. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for that. Very interesting way to go about things. So Ariane, you also do have a question, correct?
Yes, firstly, thank you all for your time and all the advice that you've given. And my question is specifically about RBC, and that's the only spring offer that I've received. So what is their what is their process for conversion? And I'm not sure, does everyone get invited for the final round interview for the internship, or do they assess you during the spring days as well?
So RBC is a great place to learn. I think that's one of the things that they emphasize literally on the first day. I think so they don't actually assess you during the internship, which I think is good, because if you look at like an ecosystem as to how to learn, that's good because the pressure's off. So what will be done is that you will have a choice of your preferences. So say if you're currently, I don't know what your division you're currently in.
No.
Hello?
Sorry, I think someone's on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you have your choice. You could convert from IBD to GM or GM to IBD or private wealth management, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, basically it fast tracks you to the final round for presumably 2023 summer analyst applications. Yeah. For what it's worth, I've accepted a 2023 summer analyst application. Yeah, not at, I can't comment on the phone.
All right, thank you very much for the answer.
Cool. Jordan, I actually have a question for you. So it's to my understanding that you did a Goldman Sachs Spring Week, but didn't get the conversion. So I'd like to ask what you would do differently.
Yeah, so looking back on it, I feel like what I'll do differently is be a bit more intentional with the way I moved. So like I said earlier, I was kind of networking with like the seniors, but seniors don't make the decisions. So that was kind of ineffective. And then the seniors, obviously, not going to remember me because he's just not going to remember me, is he? I would have been a bit more intentional and tactical with who I was talking to. And then, yeah, going the extra step, I feel like people have this perception that because you're a spring intern or first year or second year, you can't add value. I believe that's incorrect. So like literally all it takes is call. Hey, James, like, how can I help you today? How can I make your life easier? Just a simple question like that. It just even shows that you're willing to help. So I would have done a bit more of that. And what else would I have done? Yeah, more concentration on the interviews. I got a bit carried away with the networking, talking to the seniors, and I forgot to focus on actually preparing for the conversion interview. So when they came, I was in panic mode. The day before, I was trying to practice, etc., because I kind of forgot the technique and everything. So those are the things I would have changed.
Thanks. So you're saying split your concentration between interview preparation and networking, and don't overweight one of the sides.
100%. Sorry, just to add, I feel like because people are in person now, try and be a bit more visual, right? So if you realize that in the morning it's less busy, do your networking calls in the morning, then in the afternoon, you kind of do your main work. So it's just about being strategic with the way you move, because I will be real with you guys, you know, converting is a game. It's a game, and you just have to play the game correctly.
Thank you very much. Kai, you have a question, so how about you go ahead?
So first of all, I want to thank you for all the analysts for answering the questions. They are very insightful. So my question is not targeted towards any of the panelists. So it's about if I'm still able to apply for an internship after I've graduated from my 3 years course and on track to do a master's degree.
Yes. So age is less of it's your graduation date that matters. So hypothetically, French schools, US schools, I don't really know much else, have 4-year degree programs. So anyone graduating in 2024 can be applying for US summer 2023 summer analyst positions, which have currently opened. A lot of, for example, Cities has opened, RBC's has opened and has been open since, I don't know, but yes, it's your graduation date that matters. I think, for example, Michael Platt, the guy who literally owns the family office that is Bluecrest, he started off at Imperial, did a year at Imperial, then came to LSE, yeah, did maths and econ, started at JP Morgan, then yeah, like proved himself. I think that's one of the things. You don't worry about it. I wouldn't sweat it.
So I mean, you have mentioned many of French and US firms, but what about the UK firms? What about the UK firms?
UK, I guess, are also applicable. When I say this, I mean like EMEA versus North America is what I'm saying. So for example, for example, like me knowing basic Gujarati is not helpful whatsoever for EMEA. I mean, it is in terms of you can network, but in terms of your clients, generally those would be the APAC offices would take over, as in like would cover clients in India, for example.
And if you have any questions, you should definitely reach out to HR. They're more than willing to help you out. We're only students, so definitely reach out to HR if you've got any questions.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, actually, just to build on that, for one of my spring weeks, which was Rothschild, on that one, like it wasn't like necessarily a spring week. It was called like the Women's Horizons program, and on that one, like there were sort of like master's students, like people who are like 3 years like older than me. So it really doesn't matter on like your age, depending on the spring week itself. But yeah, like they said, more so the graduation day. And yeah, it can be quite scary when you're a first year and then there's like people who are doing like their corporate finance masters, but like just know that they're being assessed very differently, and I assume that when you're older you will also be assessed differently to someone who's in first year, so just bear that in mind. But yeah.
Thanks. Ariane, go ahead and ask your question if you would like.
Yeah, and just another question to Rohan. It's about the applications to banks in the US or other countries. So do you know if there are any banks which would accept applications without you having a work permit in that country?
So I'd say, again, like echo Nina's point, that would be a question for HR. I know that JP doesn't sponsor, KKR doesn't sponsor, Catalyst partners don't sponsor. I think Morgan Stanley doesn't sponsor. But again, I think this is all available on the like respective websites / and/or. So the US actually use Handshake, which is different. And also, so but this is the thing. For Catalyst, I reached out to someone who worked at Catalyst, and they created a link. So I'm a big believer in making your own luck. You can, because so technically speaking, my Handshake account, it's not eligible because I don't go to school / university / college in the US. But yeah, things like that do happen. Yeah, you really got to kind of believe in yourself. You've got to be able to take rejection. There's definitely a lot of rejection, as you guys probably all know. I think, yeah, there's certainly, yeah, a lot of rejection.
All right, thank you.
I just want to touch on a question that I've seen come up a lot on the chat function in Zoom. It's about integrating the spring week into your CV and how to show that you've done one. So your experience in this spring week is seen as work experience. So you can make that a section within your CV under work experience. So you can put the title, whatever the spring week was, and then a few bullet points about what it was about. I remember in your CV for our age group, it should only be a page. So make sure that it fits within the 1-page boundary. And yeah, just a normal CV work experience layout. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much. I guess this is a good place to draw it to a close, unless anyone in the audience has any extra questions. No? Okay, cool. Then, well, someone asked what % of interns are converted, generally speaking, if anybody knows that number.
I think it's different for every firm, but I know for City or for my particular division, it was quite high conversion rates. And then that kind of goes on to the summer as well. So if you get the summer, it's quite a high conversion rate to the grad. But it differs for every firm. So
yeah, Bazaar has high conversion rates as well. Very high conversion rates.
I guess, sorry, just to echo Crystal, to echo that point raised. I think City has about a 60% conversion rate. That's also a ballpark figure. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, I don't really know.
And I know Bank of America was about 20% for my year group. So, but saying this, these numbers, they're just numbers. It can change year on year. And as long as you take the most out of your spring week, even if you don't convert, you've definitely learned something and you've gained exposure and you've networked and things like that. So see everything as a good opportunity to grow your career and grow your mindset. And if you don't convert, don't worry, you can reapply for summer internships. So you can do it.
You can do it. Very good inspirational words for everyone. Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming. I guess we'll give our hats off to all the panel speakers. I guess you guys can say your final words.
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you so much to everyone, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is actually Alfred Christopher, not Alfie Christopher, as it says on Zoom. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, likewise with me, feel free to reach out. And just a side point, some of you don't have your full names as your Zoom name. Put your full names there for your spring week.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if you're interviewing, definitely. I think, yeah, feel free. Also, yeah, enjoy your time at university. It's supposed to be the best 3 to 6 years of your lives. You're not going to get the time back. Yeah, really enjoy it. Apply yourself. Go out, enjoy it. Explore the nightclubs of your respective city, if you're into that, of course. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Reach out to me on LinkedIn for a chat. We can have a quick 15-minute call. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Like any of the stuff that we spoke about, just feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or anything. Yeah, I'm always happy to help. Yeah.
Great. Thanks all of you. Make sure to jot their names down if you guys need to. And yeah, do feel free to reach out to any of them because clearly they are all more than willing to help. Great, this has been a good call. Have a good day, everyone, and massive thanks to all of you for hosting the event and telling us, yeah, big wave over there to Nina and Rohan. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.